right, hello everybody. I've been told that this microphone I have is just for show for you guys here in the room because we have a bunch of people with us online. So this is for their benefit. Can those in the back row kind of give me a high sign you guys can hear me okay? Okay. And Tiffany will be mic'd up as well, so we should be good to go. My name is Tracy Sweeney. I'm with the Distinguished Alumni Group, and it's my honor to be able to introduce a couple of folks to you this evening and get things kicked off. So as is tradition for these evenings, we're going to have Lillian join us up here in the front and give the official welcome to the event and get us rolling. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome to everybody who's joining us online. I know there's a number of you. It's wonderful to see so many people in the room with us. We have current students, we have alumni, faculty, industry, friends of COAD. So on behalf of Lawrence Technological University, I want to extend a warm welcome to everybody. This evening, at its heart, is ultimately about legacy. So we gather to honor an alumna whose work exemplifies the impact that an LTU education can have on the world and the industry. Our Distinguished Architecture Alumni Award recipient, Tiffany Brown. Tiffany's career reflects a commitment to excellence in practice, equity, and leadership. She's a unique and visionary leader. She's shaped the built environment and continues to inspire and support future generations of architects. As we celebrate Tiffany's accomplishments, we also look toward the next generation through the Distinguished Architecture Alumni Scholarship. Established by past Distinguished Architecture Alumni recipients, this annual merit-based scholarship supports outstanding students who demonstrate exceptional work and drive to carry the LTU legacy forward. So for all of the students in the room, please listen carefully. This applies to you. The scholarship has a deadline of January 15th, 26, and it's a tuition award. So you'll be receiving an email regarding eligibility, but if you're a current master's student or in your final year as a Bachelor's of Science student, pay careful attention because this applies directly to you. For the freshmen in the room, please remember to scan our LTU Experience Passport, which is, the QR code is by the door. You may also notice some digital slides this evening on the screen downstairs as part of the reception that highlight another way to support our shared legacy here. So this is in support of the repair of the roof of LTU's Frank Lloyd Wright designed Affleck House. Through the Donley Affleck House Maintenance Fund, all contributions at this time are being matched dollar for dollar, so a gift would essentially be doubled to support these roof repairs. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be part of the preservation of one of LTU's architectural treasures for generations to come. To learn more about that, there's a QR code on these slides. But thank you for all being here for this important event tonight. It's my pleasure to reintroduce Tracy to acknowledge our scholarship winner. There you go.
Thank you. So half my work is done. I was going to tell you guys about the scholarship, but that's handled for me already. So that's awesome. We're in our third or fourth year, I think now, of awarding the scholarship. We intend to continue that into the future. Can I get a raised hand of anybody that's in their senior year, in the final year studies, that might be thinking about potentially? It's all anonymous, so it's okay. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't be able to know you were there in the future anyway. But please do watch for that. Talk to other students. Let them know that that's something that's possible. But we did ask James to join us this evening to say just a couple of words about his experience and kind of what he's been doing here at LTU and maybe what he's looking forward to in the future. So if you guys would help me in welcoming James Hoppy.
Good evening, everyone. I want to first thank you, Tracy, for the introduction, and thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here. It's an honor to be included tonight in such an excellent celebration of architectural excellence. It means a great deal to me to be able to receive this scholarship today, and there's several reasons for that. The first one is that I'm excited to be to begin an association with the successful cohort of alumni from the architecture program here at LTU. But another reason that I am honored to be receiving this scholarship is that financial support is something that can get kicked to the wayside when you're looking into higher education. We just think of it as something that we're going to throw onto loans. But financial stress is an incredible antivenom to academic excellence. And so being able to take some of that strain and stress off means a lot to my academic pursuits here. But more than finances, I'm honored to be recognized and encouraged in the pursuit of architectural excellence through this award. It's really something that I'm grateful for. I should say a little bit about myself. I currently am a master's student here. Just recently received my Bachelor's of Science in Architecture last spring, and am pursuing the thesis track here at LTU. But I want to say something about my experience here at LTU. Since the beginning of my time here, I have, from the first day, I was surprised by how much I was enjoying architecture. I wanted to go into it and see what it was like. I was not fully convinced on it as being my career. But from the very beginning, I was very engaged with the profession because of the many different angles that it has, and many different avenues that it brings to your attention. It's a very varied occupation, and it brings you into contact with so many different things that you don't understand. And all of those I see as learning opportunities. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, is being able to learn and continue to learn throughout my career and throughout my education. And the more I learn about architecture, the more I want to establish a framework of innovative and sustainable practices. And that sort of leads me into some of my thesis work right now, my graduate level work, is looking into how emerging technologies can begin to address some of the issues that we have, looking into how things such as robotics and AI can address issues of material waste that are contributing to a degraded ecology. And eventually, I plan to spend the next few years of my education and career learning as much as I can, learning as many of these new innovations, practicing new technologies, learning new things, and exploring. I really want to spend the next few years really understanding as much as I can and exploring and finding what I'm interested in. And eventually, I would like to take the things that I've learned in college and in the beginning of my career and start my own practice. That's something that I'm looking forward to and interested in. I want to create a place where I can begin to implement some of the practices that I'm learning currently in my education and also in my career. I would love to begin a firm that champions some of these things, champions design innovation, technological advancements, and sustainable practices. And I want to just conclude this by saying, communicating my gratitude to the Architectural Alumni Committee, the Scholarship Committee, for recognizing me for this award. It means a great deal to me, and I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
So I'm going to ask just a couple of things, not for the benefit of those who are online, but we do have DAA members across the state and across the country as well who are probably dialing into the online. But for those who are here in the room, can you raise your hand or stand if you're a past winner of the Distinguished Architecture Alumni Award? Please. We're not into standing tonight, but we've got a number. Don't ask them to show you the tattoo. We've all got a number tattooed somewhere. So we got that handled. We are also honored to have a number of Tiffany's family and friends present. So if you are here with Tiffany and you've got that kind of on your t-shirt, raise your hand and let us see where you are. Tiffany's got a lot of friends here tonight. So you already know how wonderful Tiffany is. Let me tell you for just a moment about the Distinguished Architecture Alumni Awards so that you kind of understand what Tiffany's being recognized for and what, in fact, so many other qualified applicants are submitting for. We were very fortunate this year to have a very strong class of candidates for the award. Tiffany stood out, and you're going to see why here in a minute. I'm not going to take any of her thunder or steal any of the wonderful things that she's been doing, but the award recognizes an individual for their professional accomplishments, for their service to the community, and for their service to LTU. And so it's that three-pronged strategy that we take a look at when we're kind of deciding who will get the award for the year, and Tiffany knocked them all out of the park. So we're very excited to be able to recognize her this evening. I'm gonna grab this now, because I usually forget to grab the actual hardware, and ask Tiffany to come on out and join me.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you to the jury who selected me as the winner of this very cool award. I bet someone here at Lawrence Tech made this, didn't they?
That award has a long history.
Harvey Ferrero and Gus Peck.
All right. Let's put this here where everybody can see it. No, maybe not. No. All right, well, I want to start by saying thank you, everybody, for coming, the students, the professionals, my family members, those who know me and those who don't know me. So I'll just kind of call out a few folks as I go through the presentation here. But I did want to first thank Amy Baker, the person who nominated me for this award. Amy, where are you? Are you in the front? Oh, bright pink. Can't miss her. Amy really encouraged me to reapply because last year I didn't get a chance to do so. So just wanted to shout out all the other folks who applied if you're here or online. Proud to be LTU alumni just like I'm sure the rest of you are. So I will try my best to keep this. Maybe I'll just put a timer on here. You know how it's a struggle to do anything within 30 minutes for me, but Rainey is here. He likes to come pull me off the stage when I'm talking for too long, so. So there are quite a few things that I'm involved in and quite a few things that I want to talk about. I am a former professor here, an adjunct professor, so teaching here periodically. It's just really surreal to be standing here receiving this award. Lawrence Tech became a part of my life when I was 17 years old. I graduated from Northwestern High School in Detroit, and I started here that fall because someone from Lawrence Tech, it was just a recruiter whose name I wish I knew. She was not an architect, but she came to talk about architecture, and at that point I was in the 12th grade. I didn't know what I was gonna do, what I was gonna study. I was always drawing. My mom and my dad and my aunt are great at drawing. My dad's a cartoonist. My mom is a portrait artist where she could shade like no other than my aunt. But those were traits that I received, and I thought I was going to be an animator when I went to college and worked for Disney. So, but someone came from Lawrence Tech, and by then I was really interested in the spaces where I learned and where I lived and how I could make them better. So I started at Lawrence Tech that fall. At 17, and ever since then, obviously 5 years ago, I've been involved here at Lawrence Tech, ever since. Through 3 degrees and doing so through a full-time job. And I worked at Hamilton Anderson. I started there as a sophomore here, and I got that job working at the front desk because of someone that I knew. So I always tell students, wherever I'm speaking, in this industry and many others, it is going to be about who you know. It's going to be about how you can get your foot in the front door, because my only experience at that time was administrative work. So I started at the front desk, and by the time I Left Hamilton-Anderson, I was leading my own projects. So I was capable or fortunate enough to be at a place where people cared about my professional development, and they made sure that I eventually left the admin department and I was working on projects where they led and guided me through my journey here today. So just a few pictures of some things that were in my submission, something I did with the AIA, a documentary called Design for All that is based on my chapter in this book called Mismatch, How Inclusion Shapes Design by Kat Holmes. And then there's a picture of me upper left, right-hand corner in front of Smith Group's map of Detroit, or 3D model of Detroit. So let's just jump right in. My aunt is gonna kill me, she's here. Stand up. You wanna stand up, Auntie? I know you're here. That's her with the long legs and the black shorts. And that is me, very stylish in my socks and sandals. Thanks, Mom. My mom is here. You wanna wave her hand there? Hi, Mom. My aunt and uncle behind me, but I just wanted to start by asking all of you, what does inclusive design look like for a young lady born in Detroit in a very urban neighborhood on Joy Road in Southfield? So it was a public housing development where my grandmother raised her 7 kids, my mom being one of them. Both my grandmothers raised their kids there. So my grandmother is in the picture. One of my grandmothers is in the picture on the far left. She thought she was out of the picture, but don't tell her she's in the picture. She's not here tonight. We grew up in a development on Joy Road in Southfield. That's a Southfield freeway going down the left side of the screen. And by the time we moved out of what used to be Herman Gardens, it looked like this. And it was torn down. We only moved out because it was torn down. It was surrounded by a black wrought iron fence. My elementary school is in the bottom right-hand corner, and it is basically, for me, the black wrought iron fence was representative for a few things. It was a physical black fence, a gate, but it was also a mental barrier around a lot of people who grew up there, where we were kind of, I wouldn't say forced, but we were kind of trained or made to believe that that was as far as we could go, what was inside of that fence. And a lot of people, when they moved out, they didn't move far, they just moved around the perimeter and stayed there, waiting to move back in. And so for 10 years, that property sat vacant. And there were a lot of promises made by the city of Detroit to rebuild Herman Gardens. But in that time, I had gone to Lawrence Tech and studied architecture and got a degree, a Bachelor of Science in Architecture and a Master of Architecture. And I was fortunate enough to end up on the project team at Hamilton-Anderson to rebuild what is now Garden View Estates. So if you drive by Joy in Southfield or on Southfield on your way to Dearborn, you will see what is now Garden View Estates, and it was my first experience in construction administration. This is my grandmother who was in that other picture, but she's very proud to say that I had a hand in rebuilding, our old neighborhood, and this is where she now lives. She did move back. My other beautiful grandmother is here in the audience. Where did she go? I thought you were gonna sit down here. So my grandmother Martha she was in administration at Herman School, but they were both important parts of all of our lives. 2 of the strongest women that I know, and my grandmother in this picture, she's the matriarch of my mom's side of the family at 82 years old, and my grandmother Martha is not that far behind her. So I wanted to talk about how a girl from Detroit found herself studying abroad in Paris, and it was an experience that I never thought that I would imagine standing in front of the Mona Lisa, coming from where I grew up, or being in front of Villa Savoy taking a silly picture with my classmate. And when I was there, people would ask me where I was from, and I would say Detroit. And they would not have a clue what I meant until I said de trois, or if I said 8 Mile, they knew exactly where I was from, like, like the movie. So back then, people were connecting Detroit in that way, but it really was a rewarding experience. I always tell a lot of, every time I'm talking to students, to make sure that you do study abroad whenever you have the opportunity, because it will expose you to different cultures, just different experiences, especially if you're a creative, like those of us who are here from Lawrence Tech. A lot of us end up on the more technical side, because usually the smart people are graduates from Lawrence Tech, and we end up doing, that's a little punch to those who did not go to Lawrence. You end up, doing that part of architecture, and so I'll get into that a little later. I have a favorite teacher, instructor here. He was not my favorite instructor in the beginning, because if anybody knows Philip Plowright, are you here? Please stand and show yourself. So he took us to Paris. He was one of 2 instructors. We started out in Paris just studying the exterior of what architecture was. So we didn't go into any buildings, but we studied a long list of buildings before going in. And I think I was the only person in his class to get an A, but I was sure I was going to get an F, because I, struggled in his class before that. But it was an X-ray essay that we had to write, and I think it was 50 pages minimum or something like that. But nothing major for Phil Plowright. My essay, my book, was about the connections that I made in Paris, a lot of them having to do with these markers that we kind of followed around the city and studied their significance. But really just the connections of like how architecture played such a big part in full circle moments for me in my life, and really realizing what I wanted to do in the profession. And just really who I was, I think, as a professional and as a person. So I'm really fortunate that I was able to go over there with Phil Plowright. I also have my first design studio instructor in here. I think the only woman who has taught me in design studio. Britta Brooks is here. Where are you? Hey, Britta. So I have several classmates in here. Please stand up if you are classmates of mine. I know there are a couple of you in here. Or raise your hands. No one's standing up like I'm asking you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. That's Joe in the picture in the white shirt. Blessing to have Joe here tonight. There was a lot of art that we studied. So Gretchen Rudy was our art professor. She took us inside the buildings after we studied the exteriors of these buildings with Philip Plowright. And the most meaningful part of this for me was all of the paintings and all of the artwork that we studied while in class at Lawrence Tech, and in books that were probably 3 or 5 inches wide that I never thought I would have the pleasure of standing in front of, like Monet's Water Lilies, which is behind us, 20 and 30 feet long. We were in Musée de Lingerie. Is that the correct pronunciation? Musée de Lingerie. Okay. I left my French in Paris. Yeah, it's just to have this experience and have this museum to ourselves for a private tour. Like, there were just a lot of times where I just kind of found myself in a corner, just feeling really thankful and grateful that I found architecture. Like, I don't know if architecture would have gotten me to Paris at that age with classmates that I'm still very close friends with today. So there's another long, short story about how we had a 4-day weekend to travel Europe. You're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. And we went to Barcelona, and when we got there, our hostel was not ready for us. We could not check in, and so we spent the night at the beach. They forced me to sleep at the Mediterranean Sea, and the whole time I was walking there, I was like, I'm not sleeping outside, I'm not sleeping outside, I'm not sleeping outside. But Joe pulled out a roll of trash bags because he had a plan that we were going to sleep outside without, telling me that. I just thought we were walking to another hotel or something, but it was in the middle of the night. It's a long story. It's a funny story now, but it was not funny at the time. So as an instructor with Ed Orlowski, I was brought on by Dean at the time, Carl Dotman, to co-instruct a senior design studio where we went into the city of Detroit, and we had the students designing a healthcare facility for the neighborhood. And it was really important to me to take them into the neighborhood and get to know the residents there and not just be designing for them or at them instead of with them. So I was working full-time at Smith Group at the time. So teaching this class while working was, it was tough, but it was rewarding for me to just be back on campus and being in that position to be able to do that and teach at the school where I got my degrees from. Detroit Center for Design and Technology, it used to be DCDT. I had the pleasure of working with students and some of the instructors there and launching a program there with Tiffany and Ed Orlowski. And I think that's Steve Ross in the picture, kneeling down there. I don't have my glasses. So just wanted to thank all of you again for working with me and just really helping me to find what works best for me as an instructor here at Lawrence Tech. That was important. So something else that I wanted to share was I've been an advocate for Lawrence Tech since I've been here. I think people seem to find my story and my upbringing interesting enough to ask me to speak. Oh, there's my sister, she's late. Hi, yeah. As usual. She is Stephanie, I'm Tiffany. A lot of people mistake my name for hers when I'm talking on the phone. No, we're not twins. We just have twin names. But it's been a pleasure to be, even leading up to this point, just being seen as distinguished alumni and being shared in all of the brochures, like just about every year that, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago, I've been in these brochures for Lawrence Tech. So just really an honor, and I just feel like a lot of times I'm just being honored for doing things that I love and that I'm called to do and that I'm supposed to be doing. So I appreciate the opportunity. One of the projects that I am most proud of that I worked on at Hamilton Anderson is City Center Las Vegas. Who's been here where there's Don Chihuly and all kinds of really cool artwork happening at this resort and hotel? But the tower in the back is the Vidara Tower that I worked on. It's the one that's pictured to the right. It really was where I was kind of like thrust into the hospitality part of architecture, luxury hospitality, might I add. That there was Raphael Vignoli was the designer for this project, and Hamilton Anderson was the interior architect of record for this project. So. It kind of took up almost the whole office, at one point. Randy's rolling his eyes because it was a tough project. But, Randy is my old boss who's here in the middle. You want to raise your hand here? He and I have been through. Randy's become like family to me. He's got one of the largest and most successful architecture firms in the city. He was the first Black architect that I had ever met. And his firm was the firm where I had met other Black architects like Sandra Little, who was the first Black woman architect that I had met. So Sandra Little is here, and she is also she wrote one of the letters of recommendation for me. So thank you, Sandra. I remember having many nightmares about door schedules and curtain wall details and all types of sections through complicated designs by a team like Raphael Vignoli, but it is really where I learned to just really zero in and focus on what I was doing. I remember I was working on this project and I got really just distracted. It was a lot of fun working at Hamilton Anderson at that time. All of my friends were there. The projects were fun. The environment was great. And there was a time when I was not picking up the red lines that I was supposed to be working on, and someone called me into an office and said, "You need to get it together, because if you don't, you can't be on this project." And I didn't want that to happen to me again, to have somebody corner me and say, "I see that you're not focused in doing what you need to be doing here, and this is important work that we're doing." So I like to use that as an excuse, or as an example, not an excuse. It was just one of those moments where I knew that I had people who cared about me and people who were watching and making sure that I was learning and incorporating the things that I learned here at school, because I was not a student at the time. I think I had just graduated, but yeah, just really kept me on my toes, and to be working with people who care about you in an environment where people care about you is really important. So to all the students, make sure that you find a place where the culture fits you and who you are and what you care about, because you might work at a firm that doesn't do community work, or doesn't have construction administration as an option for you. I stayed at one place for 11 years and then went to another place for about 5 years, I think. And I think it's important to just, if you find a place that suits you where you're able to work on different project types and different phases of the project, like I was able to do at Hamilton Anderson, it really helped me to figure out what I wanted to do, because I knew that I did not want to do, like, be a designer and do renderings and, all the stuff we do in design studio. I wanted to put those ideas on paper to be built. That was what I cared about in architecture. I cared about working on, I don't know how many pages this construction set was, probably thousands. To see those things take physical form is what is rewarding for me in architecture. So I like to be out on construction sites. I like to be doing submittals and working on RFIs, and just really getting into like what makes a curved roof that looks like a balled up piece of paper. How do you build that? So those are things that I learned about in my classes here at Lawrence Tech. Another meaningful project for me was working on Mumford High School. So as a proud Detroit Public Schools graduate, shout out to all DPS grads in here. So this was a little bit bittersweet, because a lot of people had to watch. Come on in. Who's late? Who was that? Okay. I'll wait for her to get in here. So this building and the lower left-hand corner stood while we built the new one on its old football field. And then the existing building was knocked down. Oh, hi, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. The new building was knocked down while we while we were getting ready to open. No, the old building was knocked down while we were getting ready to open the new one. So the students were still attending the one in the lower left-hand corner. Also seen on Beverly Hills Cop, you might remember Eddie Murphy was in that movie wearing a Mumford jacket. Like, this is the Winans went to this school, famous gospel singers. Like, a lot of Detroit talent comes out of, well, a lot of talented artists and athletes come out of Detroit public schools. So to see people just lined up at the gate crying as their schools were their school in the middle picture being knocked down, it's kind of like memories that you just, how would it feel if you went back to one of your old schools and it just wasn't there anymore? My middle school was knocked down a couple years ago, Rudderman Middle School on the Southfield Freeway Service Drive. But just to be able to provide them something new and improved, and be able to work on, for example, this basketball floor. I remember there was a contractor trying to cut corners here, wanted to use some cheaper wood. This wood is a very specific wood that allows the proper like bounce and just the performance. And knowing that we have basketball stars who come out of Mumford High School, it was important to Rainey and I to make sure that the design of this floor remained as is. There was no value engineering happening at our schools, because we need state-of-the-art, like, our students deserve, the students in Detroit deserve state-of-the-art things too, and so just sitting at these tables and listening to a lot of the conversations as a product of Detroit Public Schools, I was just happy that Rainey and I could, just kind of be background spectators, incognito in that upper left-hand corner at the grand opening, and just proudly listening to the students and alumni talk about how happy they were with the building. So high five to you, Rainey, on that, because he lives near Mumford, and it was important to him he's driving by there all the time, and for this to be something for him to be proud of, for us to be proud of. Working on projects similar to the ones where I grew up. This is behind me is the Brewster Douglass townhomes. that used to stand on 75 and Mac. And is it 75 and Mac? It is, yeah. So I was fortunate enough to oversee the demo for the Detroit Housing Commission while I was at Hamilton Anderson. And honestly, just working on that project and being on those construction teams and being in all those meetings and never seeing anyone who would live in a building like this, never seeing anyone who probably has not walked through a building like this. This is the type of development where me and my family grew up. And so it was just where I realized, like, where are the Detroiters? Where are the people who look like me who will be in Detroit? Where are the people who look like me on these project teams, on these construction teams? And so it just kind of thrust me into learning more about where Black women were in architecture. So that's where the idea of 400 Forward came up, because at the time 400 Forward was launched, the 400th African American woman became a licensed architect. At that time, it was out of 113,000 architects in this country. So that is less than half of 1%. It is still less than half of 1%, even though we have made some progress. So I'm happy to say that 400 Forward has made a direct impact on that number, growing to 650 now, but there's still work to do. So there's a little bit of tiny text here that I wanted to just leave up, just to talk about our mission and some of my mentees and some of the work that we've been able to do. But one thing I wanted to share was, a lot of you might remember George. Who remembers George in this room? Yeah. George passed away, I think it was about 2 years ago, but it was very devastating to the university, to a lot of us who used that wood shop with his help. He helped my mentees build this mini golf putt-putt for Month of Design that happens every September in Detroit with Design Corps Detroit. I was a freshman the year that George started here, so we grew a friendship over that 20 years that he was working here. And I remember being at his funeral, I was just bawling. I was not expecting, to be that hurt. But when you have someone who really shows that they care about, I said I wasn't gonna cry because Sam cried during his presentation. He was just boo-hooing. I was gonna try not to. I was not expecting this to be the point. Just great guy. We all miss him here. I probably wouldn't have passed a lot of my studios without George. So let me move on to something just as important, and it's Noma Detroit. So Hamilton Anderson was pretty much like the core of founding the Detroit chapter of the National Organization of Minority Architects. So you see Rainey in the picture, you see Sandra in the picture. They're usually not very far from me. And like they've become like family to me. So I think this was my introduction to Noma. I did not have Noma as a student. We actually have a chapter here at Lawrence Tech, and some of the students are here. Please stand up and be acknowledged to Nomas LTU. The other girls are not standing, but I know you're in here, so thank you. And be ready to go to conference in Miami next year, okay? We'll make sure Rainey helps to pay for it. Okay. And Jeff Hausman, who's also in the audience here, he is my old boss at Smith Group. Would you stand, Jeff? Jeff? Nobody's standing in here. But we will get to Jeff in a second. So Noma Detroit, I think we were founded back in 2003. And I served as vice president for Rainey. I served as vice president for Sandra and a few other presidents. And now being executive director of the National Organization of Minority Architects at a national level. During the pandemic, I realized that I wanted to focus my energy on working to change the industry. So we work very closely with NCARB and AIA and the Collegiate Schools of Architecture and the Accreditation Board to make sure we're shaping the industry to be better. So in this picture on the far right, was receiving the Presidential Award from NCARB, and as someone on my licensing journey, never thought I would be friends with anybody at NCARB. I never thought I would see that day, but you know, this is just a testament of growth and just really starting out, you know, understanding and remembering where I did start, and it was here at Lawrence Tech that gave me like that launching pad. So it's just been a pleasure to be able to work with my friends who are my board members and also probably on this call or virtually. By the way, hey y'all, if y'all are on here. And my staff are on here too, virtually. Yeah, to make the transition from architecture and going into association leadership was not something that I had planned for in my career, and it was just something that I was led to. And I think working on all the projects that I've been able to work on and meeting all the people along the way, and experiencing the things that I've experienced in my career firsthand, whether it be in my career or growing up, really contributed to that. And so something that I forgot to mention, that I also have an MBA from Lawrence Tech. So that's 2 master's degrees from Lawrence Tech. Raise your hand if you have 2 master's degrees from Lawrence Tech. It really made me a more versatile professional in architecture. So I knew that I wanted to be in some sort of executive leadership. I like to manage people, I like to manage projects and budgets and scope and things that I was doing as a project manager at Smith Group. And all of those things really contributed to I think my role in being executive director at NOMA. So we had gone through 3 executive directors in 3 years, and my friend Kim Dowdell, the former president of NOMA and former president of AIA at the time, she asked me to fill this role, and I'm the first one to make it to past 1 year. It'd be 5 years in January. So just really thankful for that experience. So jumping into some of my work at Smith Group, one of the first projects that I worked on at Smith Group was the Ford World Headquarters, the executive floor, and their dining improvement, and just going out there every day, working in CA. So leaving a design firm and then going into an interdisciplinary firm like Smith Group that also has a construction administration department and building systems and sciences department, right, Jeff? Really opened my eyes to like a level of smart people that I had not known existed. Like they are building envelopes like just around the world, doing all types of research on buildings and all types of things and all types of research. So working on this project with people who design cars and have that eye for detail, like we wanted to make sure that this was a suitable place for them to come to work every day. So that was one of my favorite projects to be able to work on and go to every morning to the construction site. My promotion as a project manager came when I was working on the Coleman Young Municipal Center, which is our city county building downtown. A lot of the work that was taking place there was about waterproofing and landscape upgrades on the north side of that building. So, looks like my time is up, but that's okay. I only have a couple more slides. So just wanted to shed some light on some of the things that really helped to elevate my career. Jeff Hausman and Kyle Rowling approached me to become project manager on this project, knowing that I wanted to just go into a more management role at Smith Group, and this was an opportunity for me, not only because the client wanted to see some diversity on our team, but you know they knew that this would be a great opportunity for me, just of things that times we've conversations that we've had and things that they were training me on. So they made sure that I had the support in place to be successful in this role, and I appreciate you for that, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Another complicated project that Smith Group put me on, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, working on a building for isotope beams. I wasn't sure what that meant until I started working on this project. And then the Biological Sciences building and Museum of Natural History. You might recognize these buildings if you are familiar with Michigan State's facilities or University of Michigan's campus. This is one meaningful site for me in Richmond, Virginia. We went out to a site that used to be a slave jail and burial grounds for enslaved Africans. And it was a team of us from the DC office and from the Detroit office. And I went out there. This is a rendering. This project is not yet built, but, right? It's not yet built. This is a rendering of the schematic design of this project, but what was meaningful for me and another full circle moment for me is I went to Richmond to go to a workshop to learn about like what could possibly be on this site. Should it be a museum? Should it be a school? Should it be preserved, left as is? And we were in this workshop in a library miles from the site. But the morning of my flight home, I just felt compelled and kind of felt pulled to walk to this site. And I walked out the front door of my hotel room and I walked to this site and spent probably 3 hours there just learning. And there are plaques everywhere and people walking up to me telling me about the history of this site. And then I sent my DNA off to Ancestry to find out that we have relatives that were born just out of slavery that are from Richmond, Virginia. My third great grandfather was born here in Richmond, Virginia. So these are things that just really made me want to learn more about who I am. And because my grandmothers are both from Mississippi, so I always thought that we arrived here by way of the South, but we arrived here by way of the Carolinas and Virginia, and then went to the South. So just really interesting to learn and just discover that by way of architecture. So after that, I ended up taking a trip to Africa and went to Nigeria, where most of my DNA is from, and it's just been a huge learning experience for me, a continued learning experience for me the more that I find out. So a lot of these things, these full circle moments, being back at the development where I grew up, overseeing construction there, going into Paris, these are all things that, had it not been for architecture, I probably would not have experienced that. This is a random slide of me and President Barack Obama. It is here for no reason other than to show all of you. And the First Lady, Michelle Obama. There's Jeff and Carl on this slide, and the year that I won all 3 awards for Associate Member of the Year from AI Detroit, AI Michigan, and AI National. But these are experiences that, who was it? Experiences that I would not have been able to have had it not been for architecture. Come on in and join us. Oh, hi, Tiana. So Tiana is here from Cleveland. She is Columbus. I'll get it right. Well, she's visiting from out of state. She is a university liaison on NOMA's board of directors, so she and I work very closely. I was also university liaison for all of the schools of architecture in the Midwest part of this country for NOMA. So Tiana is now in that role. She's leaving the Tape the Dean event at UDM. And so LTU, NOMAS, this is your UL. So make sure that you introduce yourselves. Thank you for coming. A couple of things that I learned as a person who is trying to be the face that I was looking for growing up. And I'll start with number 1. This is on slide number 3. Seeking out points of exclusion. I think the first point of exclusion that I experienced was at my elementary school shown behind me, where we did not have books. Hey, y'all. We didn't have books. We didn't have walls that were properly painted. We didn't have anything there to nurture my creative mind. So I grew up in a place where I wanted to draw. I loved art. Eventually, the arts were removed from Detroit Public Schools. I don't know if anybody remembers when that happened, but it was very devastating to me as a person who was horrible at playing the violin, but I loved my violin class. My art classes, like all of these things, they were not available to us. So being exposed to something like that, where people were coming to my school and referring to us as disadvantaged youth, you know, and kind of like the words that you are using to describe students in front of you are very impactful. It made me feel like you think that I am not capable of doing something. So I always share that when just speaking publicly, like the words that we use are supposed to empower our students and not make them feel as if you don't think very highly of them. Like that's really what I took from that, you know, being someone in DPS and hearing that all the time, and not having doctors come to our schools to do career day, not having lawyers or judges or anything like that. The only professionals that were in front of us were police and teachers. So that was my exposure, you know. So thinking back to that, like that was the first point of exclusion. So if you're an instructor, or if you are someone who hires people, or if you are someone in class with folks who may have, this might be their first time on campus, at a college campus, that was me. So I had not been on a college campus until I got to Lawrence Tech. I was not in an environment where we were shipped to HBCUs or other college tours. Like I had not experienced that. So getting to Lawrence Tech and sitting next to people who already knew what a scale was, who already knew what an elevation was, who already knew architects, that was not something that I had as part of my life getting here. So identifying situational challenges, this is sometimes referred to as situational bias. I learned to consider the context in which the users interact with places and spaces that design the experience to be accessible on like daily moments of exclusion. It's why I brought these mentees of 404 here to Lawrence Tech's campus, and you probably recognize that is the hallway for our design studios down the hall. And that was their first time being on a college campus too. Recognizing personal biases is the third point that I like to make when talking about the importance of inclusion and belonging. When we find ourselves inserting our own assumptions and needs into the place or the building that we're designing and not really considering the users of that space. Without involving the user community, the built environment of our city would likely reflect what that designer's own abilities and accomplishments and needs are. So here is my colleague Laura, who I know from Smith Group. She's talking to my mentees about ways that she learns from us and incorporates it in her design. So she has a successful firm now where she does a lot of local work in the city of Detroit. But involving people from different communities throughout the design process is another important point, or a way that you could solve like recognizing personal biases, making sure you're hearing from those user groups. Providing equivalent experiences. When studying architecture, I realized that I learned in a very different way from my peers. So a lot of hands-on. I think that's why I like to be at construction sites, because we could draw a wall section or a foundation, like basement wall, and having not ever seen how it is poured or even formed, like that played a huge part in my learning about what I was drawing. So those types of things, like having that experience and being able to do that, and not just getting that experience because someone is become my mentor because this is someone who feels most comfortable with me because of what I look like, or just kind of, I have this persona now where I have learned that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So if I'm at a place where there's someone who has never worked with someone like me, we can just take my experience here at Lawrence Tech for one. There were not a lot of places that looked like mine here while I was in school, and a few of my classmates came in after I started, who who we're still great friends now. But just making sure that we are provided those types of opportunities. If I wasn't extended a lot of the opportunities by people who are in leadership roles, and I think that takes us to solution number 5, a lot of times in this industry, those leaders are male. And so a lot of my experiences were extended to me by males in the field. Sometimes, you have a male that might flock to another man or male in the firm and mentor him. And because I was just outspoken and really wanted to learn and really wanted to grow, you just have to sometimes make people listen to you and make people see what you're capable of, whether they see it or not. So extending that solution to everyone is not something that people in leadership roles think of first. They think of who is the ideal architect? What does that look like? Who's the ideal doctor? What does that look like? They kind of just veer toward what is common to them or most familiar to them. And if you are not someone who is outspoken and outgoing, then you would miss out on those opportunities. So I just wanted to, again, talk to the instructors, the people who own firms, the people who hire at firms. Anybody who is mentoring people, just mentor someone that does not look like you. Like that's very rare for someone like me in this field, and I think it's changing today with a lot of the resources that are out there now. But I noticed that it was just a problem for a lot of folks in architecture. So I have a little story about this slide. That's my daughter in the middle. She's here. Raise your hand, Bren. Bren's here. Bren embodies what I wished to be at her age. You might not believe this, but I was very quiet and shy as a child. I felt invisible. You could see it in my posture in this picture of me where I was Bren's age. Just an emptiness behind my eyes, that I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do. And it's funny because in the blue, I had on a button that said, "I know I can." And I got that from the Compact program. I don't know if y'all know about the Compact program in DPS, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. But as I got older, and these two pictures in the middle and the left, me and Bren are about the same age. I don't know, I wish I could go back to her and hug her and just tell her she is capable of doing whatever she puts her mind to, because at that time, that Tiffany that you see on the far right, don't take pictures of this slide. I see someone taking pictures of this slide. Ancestry, after I submitted my DNA to Ancestry, they sent me an email and said, "Is this you?" And I was like, "No, that's not me." The girl in the green background. I had forgotten about her. I had forgotten that I even took this picture. I didn't even remember taking this picture. So along my journey in architecture, there have just been points in time where I had to break out of that shell and learn who I was. And that happened for me here at Lawrence Tech, with a lot of people doubting my capabilities, and not just at Lawrence Tech, but just in architecture. Based off of who I was and what I looked like and where I came from, people kind of summed me up as if I had given them permission to measure how far I could go in this life. So I know when I look back at that picture, I remember it now as a time where I did not, I'm trying not to say this in the worst way, I did not know I existed, So I had to find that out and figure that out. And the confidence that eventually showed up, it happened while I was in college. It happened because I was put in front of juries in my design studios, having had no training on presenting a project, having had no training on speaking in front of people who are about to tear my project to pieces. That's what they like to do here at Lawrence Tech. So, but in design studios in general. And I crashed and burned the first time that I had to present my project. My design was great, my boards looked great. I was visibly shaking. I was so nervous. And I don't know if you remember that, Beverly. Beverly is one of the first Black woman architects in Michigan, also a Lawrence Tech grad. So wave your hand. So the difference between Bryn and I at the same age, you would think that there's multiple generations between me and her, you know, but at that time, I didn't know what I was capable of doing in the future. I didn't know I was going to raise a championship gymnast who's first in the state, who is an excellent dancer, has a solo this season, has a duet. Like those are 2 of like 9 routines that she's in this season with dance. I didn't know that I was capable of creating her, you know, someone who, she has just sprouted out to be like the ideal Tiffany at that age. And I look at her and I look at these pictures of myself, and I know that I have a job to do, even though in this industry, it's a bit of a filter. You know, we come in here and they're telling you not everybody here is going to graduate. You know, they just kind of lead with that at times, you know, and I think they do that in a lot of majors. But being the person who holds the door open and provides access, who's this? Somebody that's supposed to be here. Determining who makes it, or at least giving access to those who can make it, being someone who can provide scholarships for ARE exams, being someone who can come here and speak to students at Lawrence Tech, you know, in an audience where, in a room where I once was having lectures myself, standing in front of my family, my aunts, my little cousins and not so little cousins who are here, my grandmother who was in the room. It really is just an honor. With all of the awards and acknowledgments that I've received, what matters to me most is receiving this type of acknowledgement from Lawrence Tech, from the city where I was born. So I just want to thank all of you for bearing with me as I go 12 minutes over my time, and just give you a little snapshot of what's important to me and how I got here, and hopefully you can take away something for yourself. Thank you.
All right, so here's how this is going to go. I'm going to pick up my imaginary microphone again, and we're going to let you guys ask some questions. The procedure is going to be, they'll ask the question, I'll repeat the question because online they probably won't hear the question.
Okay.
And then it's you, and it'll give you a second to kind of think about your most magical answer for that question too.
Okay.
So in the room, I'm open for questions. There's got to be somebody. All right, let me ask this while you guys think of a question. So I would not want to get in your way. Nobody's going to get in your way, but what is the next thing? Like, what is something that you would love to be able to do, or something you've always dreamed about doing that you still feel is like out there for you?
This might sound crazy. I want to get a law degree, you know?
Why is it crazy? We've got Fred Butters right here. He's
Oh,
a
yes.
GAA. Help me out.
So I think I wanted to, had I not gone to school for architecture and not ended up at Disney, actually turned down a job at Disney to take a job at Smith Group, Jeff, but not gone there to be an animator, I would have studied law. And I think I still want to. And being at Smith Group, the attorney for Smith Group, the in-house legal counsel, is an electrical engineer. And I've been able to work on healthcare projects with architects who were also, she was also a registered nurse, you know, and I just found that to be so cool, like just to be an expert in multiple disciplines. So having a dual career or multifaceted career has just always been something that I know I will do. And a lot of times people try to like make me zero in on one thing, but I'm not able to do that. Like I don't think I'm going to do that, but yeah, I think if I could get a Juris Doctorate, I could probably get it pretty easily. Little rule of thumb, if you come back to Lawrence Tech after you get your master's in architecture, you can get an MBA very fast. it probably took me a year and a half to get an MBA because I had already had a lot of leadership classes, undergrad, or not undergrad, but in my first master's. So yes, I will call you Fred so that you can talk me out of it probably, but like everybody else.
Anybody else? Yep, right up here.
I'll use my teacher voice.
Yeah.
First of all, this is my sorority sister.
Hey, sorority sister.
I love her, and I've just been watching her throughout the time I've gotten to know her, but this brought tears to my eyes. But what I want to say is I do a lot of work around gifted and talent and giftedness and the development therein for children specifically who are Black and brown in Detroit. And so one of the things we talk about is a concept called brain drain. Brain drain meaning that we don't necessarily seek out and develop talents and gifts in our children. I'm going to speak specifically about Detroit, but we can talk about any other community. And when we don't do that, we lose our most critical thinkers, our analytical thinkers, who are going to be our problem solvers. And so they leave their city, they leave the school district, they leave the state, and they go where there's an infrastructure where they can develop and contribute. So I want to hear kind of your thought about, I know you have the mentor program, what could we do as, I work for Detroit Public Schools Community District, what could we do as a city to help support the development of talent and gifts? Just like you said, you've unlocked some things being here at Lawrence Tech that say, oh, I can do more, I can do more. And that's that part of developing our students at their best. So what could we do as a city, as a district, as a state?
Okay, so I'm going to try. I'm going to do it poorly. But to sum that up really quickly for those who are online who maybe couldn't hear that whole thing, I thought it was amazing. You're talking about we've got a lot of students in the Detroit area, gifted and talented. Folks are not necessarily realizing their potential. There's the loss of that talent to other areas, and kind of asking for Tiffany's opinion of kind of like, how do we feel about that? What do we do about that type of challenge?
So for what happened for me is I was in an auditorium full of kids that I honestly feel like I was meant to hear that recruiter's speech about coming to Lawrence Tech. There might have been no one else paying attention in that room. I'm in an audience full of high school kids sitting in the middle of the room, and I was the one that like was there listening almost as if I was the only one in the room, because someone showed the care to come and talk to me and show some interest in helping me find my full potential. And that's really how I'm able to relate to my mentees in 400 Forward, just being personable and actually being there because you care and not because your job is making you go, not because it's part of a community engagement project, not because you have to check a box, you know, on some project work or something. So just making sure those kids have someone who cares about them in front of them, and sometimes it just takes more than one approach, you know, more than one person. But just staying diligent with showing them that you care and providing resources to them. And they're not always receptive to it right away because they don't believe in themselves, you know. And it's not just DPS, it's just someone who wants to be an architect that doesn't know anything about architecture. You know, I got here, I didn't know I was going to have to take 40 licensing exams to become licensed, or 7 or 9 or however, you know, how many there were. But making sure they're going to camps, making sure that whatever they're interested in learning about, they're being exposed to what it takes to become a professional in that field so they don't end up in college and fail. And sometimes that even looks like making sure they go to community college first, because I came to Lawrence Tech right after high school and I was in a lot of prereqs. I was probably in a year and a half worth of prereqs. So even though I was 3.8 coming out of Northwestern, I got here and I wasn't like fully prepared for what was in store for me. So I could have gone to a community college first and not spent, you know, I could buy a solid gold house with the amount of loans I have from going to a private school for 3 degrees. But just encouraging them to take baby steps toward their goals, and it's okay to fail, telling them that too.
Maybe before we take another question, we haven't given you a ton of time to talk about 400 Forward. I know there's a lot of stuff involved with that, sourcing funding to do this type of support, being able to speak up for folks. So maybe a couple more minutes just to let everybody know a little bit more about 400 Forward if they didn't come into the room knowing.
Okay, so I'll just repeat how 400 Forward was started. In 2017, I won a $50,000 grant from the Knight Foundation to launch 400 Forward. It was a matching grant, and it was to expose girls in inner city neighborhoods that come from neighborhoods like myself to what architecture is. So it means mentoring, it means providing scholarships. I'm able to pay for licensing exams for emerging professionals, and even providing funding for the very expensive tools that you need to, as a freshman, come into a College of Architecture. You need sketchbooks, you need T-squares, you need markers, you need lots of things from that bookstore, that are not cheap. So just giving them a start. It might even mean just someone has questions for me. People from all over the country call or email the website. They're thinking about going to Kent State, or they're thinking about studying interior architecture or architecture engineering, and they don't know the difference. So that's something that I'm able to connect them to a mentor in California or in Florida where they're from, someone who can just tell them what school to study at, what their experience was in architecture. So from financial barriers that can be addressed to just understanding and having some type of exposure to architecture and design, that's what I'm able to do through 400 Forward.
Amazing. More questions? Come on, I know you guys have them. Up here in the back, and then we'll come this way.
Hi, Tiffany. Thanks for a very inspiring talk. I happen to be the faculty advisor for the local NOMAS chapter.
Great.
And I think it's maybe a sort of like question to you in terms of thinking about, these are sort of like baby steps, right? And the students are kind of learning what to do. Is that from your point of view, what would be a charge? What should the NOMAS chapter do? What kind of activities do you think would lead into larger things in the future?
So we have a question from the NOMAS advisor talking about, from Tiffany's perspective, what would she be advising NOMAS to think about doing or invest their time in or do maybe for the campus or for themselves?
So for yourselves, I encourage you to come to NOMA Conference, because NOMA Conference is where you see what NOMA embodies. If you go to NOMA.net, you will see a lot of videos there. But in order for you to get to NOMA Conference, you have to fundraise. So Tiana is here as your university liaison, but me as a former university liaison, you do have to do your own fundraising, because the university has lots of student clubs to help financially. But I know that Lawrence Tech's College of Architecture will help this NOMAS chapter get to Miami next October so that they can come and network and learn about the firms that are there who's looking for talent like them. So that's what I would have you do for yourselves. But on campus, if you could just utilize NOMA Detroit and make sure you're working with AIAS and making sure you're working with the other two NOMAS chapters at UDM and at Michigan to have membership drives and just get more visibility on campus. We are working with AIAS and AIA to make sure that students don't think that they have to join one or the other. It is a collaborative effort, at a partnership at the national level, and it should be that way at the local chapters too. So also, I am right here in Detroit. I live in Rosedale Park, and that's probably 10 minutes from here. So make sure that you're reaching out to me if you need guidance. I will come and help you with your membership drives and activities on campus and things like that. So as I mentioned, Lawrence Tech was not on this campus NOMAS was not on this campus when I was a student. So I want to make sure NOMAS stays strong here. It did go dormant for a while because people graduate, but yeah, that's my advice. And make sure that your advisor makes sure that you get to NOMA Conference. And you should come too.
Anybody watching just got a master class in that whole squeaky wheel thing right there, if you paid attention in the middle. We had a question kind of in the center of the room over here somewhere. Yeah?
I remember earlier you said that you went, well, if you didn't pursue architecture, you would go to law. So I was just wondering, what college would you go to pursue a law degree?
What college would you go to for law? From a family member, I believe.
That's my daughter. She wants to make sure I'm not going to where she's going to go study law. So I'm going wherever you're going, Bryn.
Nobody in this room is safe. Anybody else? I see some friendly assistants here for a question.
Professor Lisa actually kind of asked a little bit of the question. He is the NOMA's advisor. I'm the e-board member. I was actually going to ask you, how would you approach students currently who are kind of really struggling with midterm season in architecture, with the constant creating of like new designs and professors just being so lovely to us? There's a lot of them here. How would you advise us to like stay strong and keep going?
So Tiffany's best advice and encouragement for midterm season, and we're all paying attention.
Well, encouragement for all seasons, just find a circle of friends here that will help keep you focused. I was fortunate enough to have that in Joe and all of my other classmates who joined us here. If you have a class, get going, by the way. So, that's how I made it through structures and design studio. And at that time, we lived at school. We were here with microwaves and beds under the tables, and it was, a normal, fun thing for us. I think it's changed over the last couple years, that the studio environment is not what it used to be. It seems to be more of a mental health burden, from what I'm hearing from students. So I think if we can find a way to work with our faculty on addressing that and making sure that students don't feel stress and anxiety to the point where they want to do something to themselves for getting a bad grade in studio. I mean, this is like literally what AIS is presenting to us as all of our allied partners at the national level. Like, we're hearing this from students. So just surround yourself with someone who will mentally support you and can help you. And that's not always the easiest thing to do in a College of Architecture. And we seem to it has become a way of life that you are working on your project. You're staying up 24 hours a day to, finish a midterm presentation. For us, it was, in a way it is a badge of honor, and another way it should not be. Some people look at it as it's because you waited to the last minute to do your project, and that's why you have to stay up all night. But it really is just, you're going to do that at work too, So the learning environment at school does carry into the learning environment in our firms, and that same pressure is in our firms too. So if we could just figure out a way to make architecture less stressful, it is a very notable and honorable profession to be in. It is a labor of love. It is not something that you get a degree in and you make $1 million like they do in the movies. It's something that you have to, I don't want to say struggle to get to, making good money and being able to pay off those expensive loans. But what helped me get through was my circle of friends. We all took the same classes. We were there for each other, and we are lifelong friends, so we still hang out today. We did study abroad together. We had really cool and not so fun experiences sleeping at the Mediterranean Sea on the beach while studying abroad. But yeah, you just have to find a core group of people who can be your strength.
Right here?
I don't have a question for Tiffany, but as an African-American female that was here 40 years ago, I am so very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Beverly.
All the things that you're doing, and I'm proud of the mentorship that you're providing. There were no mentors when I was here, not one. So I really, really appreciate what you're doing. I'm very proud.
Thank you so much. One of the people that I look up to in this industry, so that means a lot. No more questions, please.
Oh no, I can't say no to Rainey. I can't say no to Rainey.
I can't be outdone by She just beat me to the punch. Tiffany, from the youth that came out of the west side of Detroit in Herman Gardens to this, I am so proud. You brought
Thank you.
tears to my eyes. So thank you. Very proud.
Thank you, Raymond.
I see 1, 2, and then I think another hand over here.
I just wanted to add to everybody else. I think before even you knew it, growing up, you were my example. You were the perfect example of an older sister. I'm the baby sister. So I was BB before you ever actually had BB. You were a prime example of leadership, just a phenomenal big sister, just a great person to just follow behind. So just speaking from my son and your daughter and our little cousins, everybody, you definitely played an important role to all of us. We've seen you be one of the first people in our family to go to college and to meet the president and do all of these things that we never seen anybody else do. So just to take that moment to say thank you for being just a phenomenal woman, a great sister, and just somebody that we just love and cherish so much.
Thank you, sister.
For those who couldn't hear it online, I'm not going to try to repeat all that, but I will say that Tiffany, they're seeing things that you were not seeing in that right-hand picture in that photo. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Somebody else over here.
Okay, so my question to you, this is like a bit more of like a more like recent topic, but like, what are your thoughts on like artificial intelligence in terms of like different like job industries?
Okay, so we got to the AI question, and we knew we were going to.
Yeah.
So take it away, Tiffany. What do you got?
Devin is my very smart younger cousin who, I'm not surprised she's asking a question like this. But to answer that question, I grew up drawing and sketching, and when I came here to Lawrence Tech, we were put in front of computers and doing computer-aided drafting. Everything was in front of a computer. So I went from having a stack of sketchbooks full of hand drawings to not having that at all. And so as AI developed, and I also loved creative writing, I had a bad feeling that writing and journaling and being able to do that would vanish from my everyday life if I was using ChatGPT or learning about things that could possibly take me away from things that I love. Like I was for a long time very anti-AI. And then I went to a conference where the keynote speaker said that he knows that there are a lot of people that fear that AI will replace us in our jobs. But that is not necessarily true because AI has to be told what to do by us. What AI will replace is those who don't use AI. So that's when I realized that I had to start becoming more familiar with that technology and staying up to speed on it's here and it's not going anywhere. So it's not only going to affect architecture. I think some jobs, it will replace some jobs in some industries. But you have to, all 4 of you in a row, my daughter, my nephew, my little cousin, you too, Aubrey, you have the opportunity, because you're at the ground level, to really dive into what the future holds for, and so do you too, LTU students. Come up with a job, come up with a business, like something where you can utilize AI for yourself to make money on. Just make sure you're learning and you're constantly learning about growing technologies, because I did refuse to do that because I didn't want to leave the things that I loved. I had already kind of abandoned hand drawing, and creative writing was going to be next. So make sure you're using it so that you are not replaced, I guess is what I'm trying to say. No matter what job industry you want to go into. Yes, Aubrey?
I don't know if you went over it yet because I was kind of late, but what inspired you to actually be an architect? Because I didn't know you were how long ago. So when you got this inspiration when you were a kid or older, what inspired you to be an architect?
I was drawing all the time, and I knew I was in spaces where I lived and learned that were not helping me, helping the creative mind that I had. And someone from Lawrence Tech came and talked about the built environment, and I wanted to learn more about that, and eventually I learned how to make those places better, and I had the opportunity to work on housing developments like the ones where I grew up, and schools like the ones where I attended, and just really incorporate things that I learned in the College of Architecture on the projects that I was working on. So whether they were large or small, college campuses or demolishing the towers in downtown Detroit. Just knowing that there was more in the world outside of that black gate that I grew up in, where I spent most of my life, and where my mom spent all of her life, and where my grandmother spent most of their lives. You know, my aunts and my cousins, our whole families lived out there. So even though that wrought iron fence that surrounded that development was a barrier around a lot of folks' minds, I was not one of those people. I knew I was going to be traveling the world. I knew I wanted to be somebody. You know, I didn't know what that somebody was until I was in the 12th grade. But a recruiter is what inspired me to study architecture, because I, before that, had no exposure to it.
I saw a couple. We'll come back up here in a second. We have a couple in the front here. Go ahead, Steve.
So I want to tap into your squeaky wheel.
Hey, Steve.
If you were in an audience with the dean and the department chair of architecture, which you are, what elective would you want to suggest to them that either was missing from your education or what you see from your experience?
Steve's questioning if you were able to add an elective, so a capability, a capacity for students to pursue as part of the curriculum. What would it be?
I have to say public speaking. We are put in a design studio where we have to sell sand to the beach. And a lot of us are very shy, and a lot of us do not know how to do that. You know, don't know how to speak in front of people, especially 4 people on a jury that we've never seen in our lives, you know. So I know what I've learned from my other friends who do a lot of public speaking. Obviously, practice makes perfect, and you can get to a point where you can charge, like I do, to speak publicly someplace. But my friends who kind of started doing it easily, like they were in theater classes and, you know, growing up, like they were on stages doing things like that. And someone like her on the right, like was not experiencing anything like that. So you take someone who was in her own bubble, in her own shell, low confidence, no knowledge of architecture, and then suddenly has to like present a project, a design project in front of people, in front of your peers, in front of others. Like that was the most difficult part for me in this college.
If it were something to be more specific to architecture or
Okay.
urban design or planning, what would that look like?
I would say more community type of design projects or approaches. It's always, with my experience in these design studios, like it's some large project. It's a culinary arts school. Wasn't that our project, Britta? We had to design like something on a college campus or some very large project, and not really going into a neighborhood, learning how to work with the people that are there. And then we find ourselves in these firms and don't know how to do that. You know, don't know how to do any type of community engagement or anything like that. No desire to do that. Tiana.
So I'm gonna leave it for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. We do have a reception set up in the gallery. It's the old gallery, right? What's the number on that one? Help me out. 210. I was just gonna say 200, which I knew was wrong. 210. I could try to give you directions from here mentally, but if you don't know where it is, you're just gonna follow the gang, okay? So maybe we get 2, because I saw a hand here, and I'm gonna hold some space for you at the very end. I saw a hand up in the corner. Did we still have a question back here? I'll take one from back, oh, in the very back, in the center.
2 questions, well, 1 statement and a question. The statement is about your MBA. I think that is really important, because one thing that we learn here is the drafting, architecture, rendering side. What we don't learn is how to speak to clients, how to talk to clients. And the only persons that speak to clients are the principals, are possibly the project managers. So
not taught in architecture. We're taught the technical part, but we're not taught how to get clients, how to network with clients, how to market to clients, how to talk to them. So I think the MBA is vastly important. The second thing I wanted to ask you was, I know that you are heavily involved in NOMA and you are 400 forward. Are those the sole things that you are into now, or currently, or is there something else that you're doing as well?
Summing up, are we dabbling beyond NOMA and 400 Forward?
Yeah, I'm never going to not do architecture. I'm never going to not do construction administration. Like I don't see that happening. So I do have an investment company. I do have businesses where I provide those types of services to my friends who need it. So I don't see me not, like, those are two like very expensive degrees that I'm not going to abandon. But yes, and as far as the MBA, we don't learn much about the business side of architecture at all in undergrad. So one of the things that drove me toward the MBA was being able to do business development at Hamilton-Anderson. So I wanted to learn more about business, and that's when I started studying for my MBA, and that really made me a well-rounded, business-minded person by going to get that. So.
All right, we're going to come to our last question. I
we
promise,
take it
if you didn't have the, we're going to come back here at the very end. If you didn't have the opportunity to ask your question, Tiffany will be at the reception, so you didn't miss out. But I'm going to come to the very last question.
But my question for you is, and especially after knowing over the years and working with you, you're constantly pouring into others, whether that's 400 Forward, whether that's NOMA, thank you by the way, whether that's parenting, etc. How do you recharge and refill your cup?
So a beautiful question about when you're so busy pouring into others, how do you refill yourself?
I need to do that more often, like incorporate more self-care for myself, because you can't pour from an empty cup, and I don't do very well at that. Something that recharges me, though, is going to NOMA conference, going to AIA conference, going to those types of learning environments where I can be around all types of people, from students to professionals, my mentors, my bosses, my board members, just being around people who are learning, and there's great keynote speakers, and I do get a recharge from going to NOMA conference, even though it is a heavy lift to put that conference on as, the executive director, but it does fill me up being able to go to those types of events and things like that. But one thing I do love to do is travel. So my dad, who might be watching, hey Dad, virtually, he was in the Army when I was born. So my mom put my sister and I on an airplane at very early ages of like 9 and 10 to go to his Air Force Base in Arizona. And we were flying, something I would never put Brent on a plane to do, go from Detroit to Arizona by herself. Ever since then, I've been flying. So I will leave the country by myself in a heartbeat. I went to Africa by myself. I went to Monaco by myself. I've been to Europe by myself. I will go. So I'll tell my friends and, family where I'm going and when I will be there in case they want to come. But if they don't go, I'm going. So.
All right, so this is where we leave our online friends. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Tiffany, for a beautiful lecture tonight. Another round of applause, please.
Thank you.
And for all the squeaky wheels in the room, we're going that way.